Good evening. The Congress and the BJP crossed swords in Parliament over post-Galwan standoff between India and China on the Kailash Hills in eastern Ladakh in 2020. Leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi quoted an unpublished memoir of then Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Naravane, claiming that the government, Rahul Gandhi claims that the government was scared. Both Defence Minister Rajnath Singh and Home Minister Amit Shah hit right back. They've accused Rahul Gandhi, one, of not following parliamentary norms. Two, they sought evidence to back his claims. But was the government scared, or did India actually stare the dragon down with quid pro quo operations on Kailash Hills? That's our top focus story. Massive Sansad showdown on China Raga. Rahul Gandhi cites General Naravane's memoir, sparks a huge controversy.
What Mr. Naravane said, no. It's a matter of national security. Chinese troops, forces were right in front of our forces.
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh slams what he calls as a bid to mislead.
पूरी तरह से काल्पनिक बातें यहाँ पर सदन के सुरक्षा कर पूरे सदन को गुमराह, केवल सदन को ही नहीं बल्कि सारे देश को यह गुमराह करना चाहते हैं.
The Home Minister condemns what he calls a violation of Parliament's rules.
389 अध्यक्ष के रूलिंग को न मानने का नियम भी इसका भंग करे माननीय विपक्ष के नेता.
Rahul Gandhi doubles down on his China charge.
जब चाइना हमारे सामने खड़ा था, आगे आ रहा था, 56 इंच की छाती को क्या हुआ था उस लाइन में.
Congress alleges the government is hiding facts.
ये तो हमेशा यही कहते हैं जब इनको कुछ ऐसी चीज बाहर आती है जो जिससे ये छुपना चाहते हैं.
BJP puts out General Naravane's quote of staring the dragon down.
हमेशा हमारा स्टैंड यही रहा है कि जो स्टेटस को था अप्रैल 2020 का, उसी पर हमने वापस जाना है और जो भी एग्रीमेंट हुआ है वो उसी के अनुसार होगा.
Parliament, PLA posturing and politics is our top focus on India First. Rahul Gandhi claims his assessment was based on the thinking or perception of General M.M. Naravane, then Chief of Army Staff, and he's quoting an unpublished memoir, 4 Stars of Destiny. The question also is, why is the book unpublished? We explore. And is there merit in Rahul Gandhi claiming that the government was scared when facts actually indicate that the government actually, or the armed forces, they stood up to Chinese salami slicing of Indian territory. Salami slicing of Indian territory that's been on for decades at the line of actual control. The government, or the army, if I may, the armed forces actually pushed back, including this quid pro quo operations, going and sitting on top of the Kailash Hills, where the Chinese were on the defensive. I was reporting from Ladakh. I've interviewed General Joshi, then Army Commander. We'll get you what he also said. Disengagement happened, but also keep in mind, de-escalation is yet to happen. De-induction has still not happened. Debates like this, discussions like this, does that give the adversary an edge? The adversary gets to know what is the thinking in the government or in the armed forces, or if there are lacuna in it, higher direction of war. We'll debate all of that. I'm Gaurav Sawant, as always. Let's get started. So, leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi cited an article in a magazine reportedly quoting an unpublished memoir of former Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Naravane to claim that Narendra Modi government was scared of the Chinese. This is Rahul Gandhi's interpretation during the post-Galwan standoff. He claims this was the perception of then Army Chief General Naravane, that the army was let down by political leadership of the country. The BJP says that's clearly not true, considering Prime Minister Narendra Modi had given the armed forces a virtual carte blanche on how to respond to the Chinese at the LAC. And look at the facts on ground. Not only did India stand up to China, but India stared the dragon down with that quid pro quo operation. So if the Chinese were coming in one direction, India went and occupied the Kailash Ranges, and they were directly dominating the Moldo garrison. We'll get you more details on that, about the operations on the Kailash Hills and the disengagement that subsequently took place. But was General Naravane implying that there was a weakness in his perception in the higher direction of war? That's that big political face-off.
He is not yielding. No, sir. No, sir. No, sir. The only started. No, he is not yielding.
प्रकाशित हुई हैं तब तो आप उसका उल्लेख करिए, नहीं प्रकाशित हुई हैं तो उल्लेख करने का कोई औचित्य नहीं है।
He is trying to quote a magazine report.
हमारा
4 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
जो नेता प्रतिपक्ष कह रहे हैं, यह इसकी जानकारी उनको कहां से प्राप्त हुई है, इसके आधार क्या है, मैं जानना चाहता हूं।
अध्यक्ष के रूलिंग को न मानने का नियम भी इसका भंग करे माननीय विपक्ष के नेता। हम सदन किस तरह से चलाना चाहते हैं?
इस आर्टिकल में प्राइम मिनिस्टर और राजनाथ सिंह के कैरेक्टर के बारे में जनरल नारावाने ने लिखा है। जब चाइना हमारे सामने खड़ा था, आगे आ रहा था, 56 इंच की छाती को क्या हुआ था?
Parliament turned into a battleground.
He is on the foot. Defense minister cannot involve.
Repeated disruptions.
Sir, they are disturbing your magazine is quoting. He is quoting the
रिकॉर्ड
magazine.
पर बोलेंगे,
Loud sloganeering and a political face-off
लिखा हुआ नहीं पढ़ सकते आप, अध्यक्ष जी ने ना बोला है।
between top ministers in the Modi government and leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi over a yet-to-be-published book by former Chief of the Army Staff General Manoj Mukund Naravane.
इसका भंग करे माननीय विपक्ष के नेता।
Rahul Gandhi stood up with a magazine article citing quotes allegedly from General Naravane's book on Chinese incursions. But before he could proceed, the Treasury benches objected.
He is not leading. He is on the foot. Defense minister cannot involve.
It's a matter of national security. Chinese troops, forces were right in front of our forces. Chinese forces, our forces had taken Kailash Range, sir, in eastern Ladakh.
He is only starting.
क्या वह पुस्तक प्रकाशित हुई है जिसमें यह सब सारी बातें उन्होंने लिखी हैं? यदि प्रकाशित हुई हैं तब तो आप उसका उल्लेख करिए, नहीं प्रकाशित हुई हैं तो उल्लेख करने का कोई औचित्य नहीं है।
So,
Rahul Gandhi insists that claims of Chinese incursions are authentic, insisting that these are from General Naravane's account.
this is not me. This is the army chief. This is what the army chief has written in a book. The book is not being allowed to be published. It is languishing. And this is the army chief's perspective, his view. Why are they so scared of the army chief's perspective?
The speaker cited parliamentary rules and asked the leader of opposition in Lok Sabha to follow them, not cite sources that hadn't been authenticated.
आप अध्यक्ष की रूलिंग को चुनौती नहीं दे सकते।
कोई चुनौती नहीं देना।
अध्यक्ष की रूलिंग होती है, अब ध्यान रखना, ठीक है ना, जब भी सदन चलता है। माननीय सदस्य आप बोलिए, राष्ट्रपति के अभिभाषण में बोलिए, नीतियों में बोलिए, पॉलिसी बोलिए, आलोचना कीजिए, आपका विषय।
Because, sir,
But Rahul Gandhi continued to repeat his point despite multiple rulings by the chair.
अध्यक्ष जी आपने व्यवस्था दी, आपने व्यवस्था दी। माननीय अध्यक्ष जी, मेरा व्यवस्था का सवाल है। ये 349, 358 और अब 389 अध्यक्ष के रूलिंग को न मानने का नियम भी इसका भंग करे माननीय विपक्ष के नेता। ये 389 को भी तोड़ रहे हैं।
The Congress hit back saying BJP does not want uncomfortable facts discussed.
नरवाने जी ने प्रधानमंत्री जी के बारे में, राजनाथ सिंह जी के बारे में अपनी किताब में साफ लिखा है। वो एक आर्टिकल में आया है। मैं आर्टिकल को कोट कर रहा हूं, मुझे बोलने नहीं दे रहे हैं। वो डरे हुए हैं क्योंकि अगर वो निकला तो नरेंद्र मोदी और राजनाथ सिंह की जो रियलिटी है वो लोगों को पता लग जाएगी।
He is trying to quote a magazine report.
हमारा
4 बजे तक के लिए स्थगित की जाती है।
Lok Sabha was adjourned for the day, but the Congress continued with its attack on the government outside Parliament. Will there be more fireworks on General Naravane's book on Tuesday? With Mosmi Singh and Piyush Mishra, Bureau Report, India Today. So we have a packed house. Now, did this book come up for clearance? Why was clearance not given? What is the procedure for clearance of military books by top generals and chiefs? Joining me on this debate is Lieutenant General K.J.S. Dhillon, the then Director General of India's Defence Intelligence Agency. General Dhillon, welcome. You've written 3 books, including on operational matters from Pulwama to Balakot, recounting when you were Kashmir Corps commander. How were you able to publish your book? And General Naravane, who wrote about something about 2020 India-China standoff, his book remains unpublished, sir.
Good evening, Gaurav, and good evening to all of us. To answer your question specifically, first I will give out the procedure of getting a operational clearance from the Army headquarters. If any serving or retired officer wants to publish a book which contains operational matters. My first book, Kitne Ghazi Aaye, Kitne Ghazi Gaye, contained, complete domain of the Kashmir issue, starting from 1989 right up to Pulwama, Balakot airstrikes, and abrogation of Article 370. After having written the book, I submitted the script to the Army headquarters for their approval. Now there are 3 options which are there when a book's manuscript is submitted to the Army headquarters for approval. One is the people there, like when I was a DGDIA, I was myself approving the scripts of or manuscripts of various authors who were writing on the 3 services combined operations. So the 3 options when a manuscript comes up for approval. One is people go through the manuscript, they find nothing wrong with it, and they say, okay, approved, and there is nothing which is against the military reputation or which is unverified or which is giving out confidential operational details. So they approve the manuscript as it is. Second is they interact with the author and they tell him that we have objections on this and this aspect, line by line, para by paragraph. And the author either explains his point of view or he agrees to delete that line, which is not compatible with both the parties. Most of the times authors give their explanation and say, okay, I'll amplify this line. So there it gets resolved. And third is if there's some serious problems with the book, that means you are giving out some operational details which may jeopardize the national security or operational plans, then the clearance is withheld, unless the author agrees to delete those chapters or paragraphs or lines. Now,
so what happened with General Narvane's? What happened with General Narvane's book, sir? Why has the General Narvane's book not seen the light of day?
Like I told you, my first book was on Kashmir, my second book was on military leadership ethos, third book was on Operational Sandur, within 3 months of the operation having concluded. And my book was, we interacted with the Army headquarters 30-40 times and few lines were deleted, few lines were added. And finally, I got clearance for writing on Operation Sandur within 3 months of the operation. So there is no problem in getting a clearance if you're not violating any norms. Now coming to your specific question about why General Naravane's book. Now see, General Naravane was a former chief. He wrote as a former chief and the book was to be published in 2024. The pre-orders were already on various online sites. As per my information, I may be wrong, as per my information, I think General Naravane's book's manuscript did not go up for clearance from the Army headquarters or the Ministry of Defense. Now, this is a point which only General Naravane can verify or the publisher can verify. But if the book has not been approved by the military authorities and it contains operational details which can jeopardize the national security or the operational plans, then I'm afraid such a manuscript, I don't think it can be allowed to be published. But the details can only be verified from General Naravane or the publisher.
Okay, now that book remains unpublished, when certain aspects have been brought out in public domain and pre-launch copies, including some circulated in the media, I'm told by the publishers, if it gives out that impression that, the general reached out to the government at X number of hours, X situation was developing, and then 15 minutes later, 30 minutes later, 45 minutes later, 1 hour later, and the tanks were virtually eyeball to eyeball. Does that, indicate poor higher direction for war in your appreciation, considering you were there during one Pulwama, two when Balakot airstrikes took place, and when Article 370 happened? While that was more an internal security situation, and here it is vis-a-vis China, does that indicate poor higher direction, that a general has to take a call and he's feeling lonely at the top?
Gaurav, when Pulwama, Balakot strikes and Article 370 abrogation happened, I was the corps commander in Kashmir. The actions on ground, the battle drills at the sub-tactical level and the battle procedures at the tactical level, they are the prerogative of the commanders on ground. The higher direction of war or the political leadership's direction of war or the clearances are given when you have to initiate a war. When you have to start a war from zero, then the politicians or the government will say, okay, you can start the war. This is the time it's acceptable to us, or you can launch airstrikes, or you can launch surgical strikes, or whatever. Now, for that initiation of war, the political higher direction is a must as per our democratic norms. But once the war has been joined, take example of Operation Sindhu. Once we have gone in and hit those 9 terror targets, clearance to hit those 9 terror targets on the 7th of May early morning would come from the political higher direction. But after that, when Pakistan responds, Pakistan sends in the missiles and drones, nobody is going to go back to political hierarchy to say, sir, abhi drone aa rahe hain, missiles aa rahe hain, inko maru ki nahi maru. Those are the military commanders on ground who will take the decision. And those decisions are taken by the commanding officers and the brigade commanders. Not even at the army chief or army commander's level. Army commander, army chief would say, this is our operational orders, these are operational instructions. Then once the battle is joined, thereafterwards, for everything, you don't go back to the highest authorities to take clearances. That's what the commanders on ground are supposed to do. Now, coming to
so whether the barrel of the tank, if the Chinese tanks are advancing, and we are already on top of the Kailash Hills on QPQ operations, we've already occupied higher ground. So then if the tanks are advancing, and if, as is being said, that General Y.K. Joshi then said, I want to open up with medium RT, to open up medium RT or 155mm howitzers, then political clearance is required?
Gaurav, good you talk about General Y.K. Joshi. General Y.K. Joshi has also written a book.
Yes.
In that book, on page 225, his book, the title is Who Dares Wins.
Yes.
In that book at page 225, he very clearly gives out the incident which Naravane has also referred to. And as per General Joshi, what he has written in the book, he says after Galwan in June 2020, we had started preparing for a quid pro quo.
Yes.
That means the extension of the Galwan incident in June 2020, the preparation was already on for a QPQ option or operation, which happened on the night of 29th and 30th of August at Kailash Range in Rajnath area. Now, if that operation was a pre-planned operation and it had already been planned as per General Y.K. Joshi's book, Who Dares Wins, that means it was extension of the conflict which was already going on. Okay. So there is no requirement of a political clearance once the battle is already on. And as you refer to what article says, the tank ka barrel niche kar lena hai, upar kar lena, those are battle drills. Battle drills are at sub-tactical level. The tank commander who is driving that tank, he knows the enemy target is in front of him. Once the target has been clearly given to him by his squadron commander or his regimental commander,
Fair
then
enough.
what position his barrel should be, at what position his aiming should be, that is the prerogative of the tank commander. For that, the clearances are not taken from the highest level. That is how the battles are fought on ground.
General Dhillon, for joining me here on India Today. Many thanks. And those are images that we are showing to you when the Indian and the Chinese tanks were virtually eyeball to eyeball, and the Chinese then withdrew from that standoff situation. So how did India tame the dragon? Let me now give our viewers some details of what happened in 2020. Let's take it date by date. General Dhillon, many thanks for joining me. On the 29th of August 2020, there was an intelligence input. So the intelligence inputs were there that PLA troops were seen moving up the Chushul Bowl. When you look at that location, and we are showing it to you on the map, 29th of August, there was intelligence input that the Chinese have started moving. On the night of 29th and 30th, the moment you saw that the Chinese were already moving up, so there was a race. The Chinese were racing for the heights, and the PLA had reached helmet top and black top. 30th of August, India was very clear. General K.J.S, in an interview to India Today, and we'll play out that interview, he told us that they were very clear that they had to beat the Chinese with the QPQ operations, and immediately, so they knew there would be a stalemate in case China occupies the top first. So on the 29th of August, he reached out to Army Chief General Manoj Mukund Naravane. He got clearance. General Naravane said, go ahead, do the QPQ on the Kailash Range. That was green lit. And on the 30th of August, India just went right on top. Troops that were available with the brigade, and these were those very hardy, not just Ladakh scouts, but those Tibetan boys. They quickly went and occupied the Mukpari, Rizangla, Richinla, where they were dominating the Chinese Moldo garrison. And this was where the Chinese were taken aback that Indian Army had already moved in, and they were dominating China's main garrison in that area in Moldo. The 30th August night, this was when PLA, in an attempt to browbeat India, they started moving their armor up. This is when tension started rising, and there was a confrontation of a risk. But what did India do? India had our tanks in that situation. So the tanks were virtually eyeball to eyeball and parked there. They were there. One accidental discharge could have sparked off a war. So on 31st, there was this tank face-off, barely 50 meters apart. On the 31st of August, India's second surprise. The troops outflanked the Chinese, and this was at Finger 4. Remember, this was one of the friction points. So on the north bank of Pangong Tso, because the Indians had already seen that the Chinese were trying to move forward on the south bank, they went on top of Finger 4, and the PLA was checkmated, outmaneuvered, and India was on top of Kailash Range and on Finger 4. Now that is where the Chinese attitude changed completely. They were initially, in all the military talks that were happening, they were refusing to disengage. But once India occupied higher ground, remember, this is a lesson. China only respects strength. You show strength, the Chinese will back off. It's like, as General, and we'll play out what General Naravane told India Today. He told my colleague Manjeet Negi that whether it's a bully in your class or whether it is, the northern adversary, you stare the dragon down, he will move back. That's exactly what happened. Listen in to Manjeet Singh Negi in conversation with General Naravane.
गलवान घाटी की खूब चर्चा रही, इसके अलावा फिंगर 4 के इलाकों की चर्चा रही। ऐसा भी कहने की कोशिश की गई कि भारत ने अपनी कुछ ज़मीन को खोना पड़ा है। सेना प्रमुख के तौर पर क्या आप भरोसा दिला सकते हैं कि भारतीय सेना ने अपनी कोई ज़मीन इस पूरे मामले में खोई है?
जैसे कि कई बार मैंने पहले भी कहा है कि जो भी हमें चर्चा हम कर रहे थे, और इस पर जब दोनों देशों के डिफेंस मिनिस्टर्स की बात हुई, फॉरेन मिनिस्टर्स की बात हुई, हमेशा हमारा स्टैंड यही रहा है कि जो स्टेटस को था अप्रैल 2020 का, उसी पर हमने वापस जाना है, और जो भी एग्रीमेंट हुआ है वो उसी के अनुसार हुआ है।
Now you're hearing General Naravane yourself. In fact, in 2020, I traveled to Daulat Beg Oldie. Daulat Beg Oldie, as those images show you, it's the world's highest advanced landing ground, because in 2020, at the height of Galwan standoff, there were these rumors being spread that India had been cut off at Galwan, or India was facing trouble. I reported from ground zero. Subsequently, in 2021, I interviewed then Army Commander General K.J.S once the disengagement process had started. After that very tense standoff, now, General Joshi, as Army Commander, Northern Command, gave me details about, that Rizangla, Richinla, QPQ operations that India mounted, or both on the south bank and the north bank, where India occupied dominating heights, and ultimately the Chinese pulled back. Listen in.
If we were to talk about what's happening on the south bank of Pangong Tso, we are told it's a brilliant operation, and give us some details about how you planned that operation on the night of 29th and 30th of August to occupy the Kailash Ranges. Are we giving in too much by us vacating the Kailash Ranges, and he's only going beyond Finger 8?
Again, this was the turning point of the entire snow leopard, the entire events that are happening in Eastern Ladakh. Prior to 29th and 30th of August, 5 Corps Commander level flag meetings had been held, and we were going nowhere. So I got directions from my chief that we need to, create some leverage so that then we can exert pressure on the PLA, and then, get the negotiations into a favorable position. And once these operations were, conducted, we were able to totally surprise the PLA on the Razangra-Chinla complex, on the south bank, and even on the north bank, where we occupied areas which are dominating the entire PLA deployment on the area of Finger 4 and in the area behind Finger 4 as well, right up to Finger 8.
Let me bring in our political guests on this debate. I have Radhika Kheda representing the Bharatiya Janata Party. I have Dr. Ajay Kumar, a former police officer, someone who's worn the uniform, Congress Party spokesperson, joining me on the broadcast. In a moment from now, we'll also be going to General Sharma, former co-commander, but that's subsequently, not in the political debate. But Radhika Kheda, Rahul Gandhi is leader of opposition, madam. How is he wrong when he asks what rule can stop him from asking a very critical national security question? Why not let him raise the question and answer whatever question he may have?
Good evening to everyone. Let's cut through the noise and theatrics and place facts on the table, Gaurav. What we witnessed in Parliament today was not a debate on national security. It was a political stunt built on hearsay, half-truths and deliberate misrepresentation. First of all, this was a budget session. Rahul Gandhi, who claims that India is a dead economy, why did he run away from a discussion on the same so-called dead economy and the budget? That should have been the point of concern today. But following a script which comes from God knows where, his toolkit, Rahul Gandhi stood up claiming that national security concerns. And what did he rely on? No official briefings, no parliamentary records, no statements of the army or the government. When the Army, Navy, Air Force chiefs speak, when they spoke about Operation Sindoor, the same Rahul Gandhi and his party disregarded their words as lies and believed President Trump. They believed Pakistan, and everybody knows that Rahul Gandhi is the poster boy of Pakistan. So instead, he chose to quote a magazine article.
Charge to level on the leader of opposition, ma'am.
Gaurav, you cover national security and you're an expert at it. And you've seen all his statements have made headlines in Pakistan. All Pakistan news channels say, Dekho Rahul Gandhi kya kar raha hai? Of course, he's their poster boy because he refuses to believe our own Army, Navy, Air Force chief. Did he believe that we have the amount of planes that we've downed of Pakistan? No, but he believes Trump and questions us ki kitne plane hamare gire hai. When has Rahul Gandhi believed any of our Air Force, Navy or Army?
Okay, but let me for the moment stay on the current issue that he's raising. And now I can't quote because I believe breaking news that's just coming in, part of Rahul Gandhi's, what he said in Parliament has been now expunged. Dr. Ajay Kumar, whatever Rahul Gandhi said inside now we can't repeat since it's expunged, but outside he came out and he reiterated that the government is scared of China, and he quoted from what he calls as an unpublished book of General Naravane. Sir, the BJP says Nehru surrendered thousands of acres of land. BJP quotes from B.N. Malik's book. How will India fight China, sir? How will India fight China if this is the way Congress and the BJP take on each other? The only person celebrating today perhaps would be Xi Jinping and the Chinese. How divided India is.
So a couple of things. First of all, I want to correct Radhika ji. It was not on budget discussion. It was on the president's address. And since he was referring to what unsavory comment Tejasvi Surya made, we wanted to show that how the government of India has let down the armed forces. Now, Gaurav, I just wanted to ask a question. As the same General Naravane, a very respected army officer, has not said that he didn't write that. Okay, he didn't write that. Now, what he's written, and you're an expert, you're a seasoned journalist, and I hope Radhika also understands from a country's perspective. And I would like to advise Radhika ji, please stop labeling opposition leaders poster boy. If I say Prime Minister is an Epstein's poster boy, does it look good? I don't want to use these statements, please. I mean, I had to say such a low-level comment because you make these comments, and I really again request you. No Indian, no member of parliament is always thinks for India's interest. You and I may have a different role, but this kind of, he's a Pakistani. We don't call the Prime Minister Pakistani poster boy. We don't call Rajnath Singh the Chinese agent because he didn't listen to Naravane, to General Naravane, or everybody switched off their phones, or Ajit Doval. And also, I said that why do we speak this unsavory language? The debate is General Naravane's unpublished book. Now, General Naravane has not said that. Now, what is it in the book? If you remember, when Vajpayee ji's Kargil thing, the Cabinet Committee for Security continuously met, even in Balakot. The famous cloud radar thing Prime Minister said during that time. But if you remember, even during Operation Sindoor, you guys covered the Cabinet Committee on Security's meeting continuously, Gaurav, continuously. Why? For every event, there was a continuous coverage. But when the Chinese were moving with tanks, and the chief of the Indian Army calls the foreign minister, the defense minister, the NSA, because it's an act of war. I was hearing a general before that. If the army had fired on the Chinese tanks, it would have been a start of a war technically. So he had to take the permission from Government of India. There was no debate on that. The decision which came from the Prime Minister, which should have come earlier, is जो उचित आपको करना चाहिए, should have come from the Cabinet Committee of Security. The decision which said कि जो आप उचित समझते हैं, आप कर लीजिए. That the Government of India, the process, the nation should say, and it's not a question of Congress or BJP. And I'm really pained by this discussion. And Radhika ji, you are much younger to me, like my. So I just want to say that please let's stop this. The important part is General Naravane has not said he didn't write that. And if he did write that, Gaurav, won't you feel that it is a serious issue? That the Chief of Army Staff doesn't, and the Chinese are going up the time, because if you are fired at the Chinese and the Chinese tanks are destroyed, fine. Is it a start of a war? Is it the escalation? Is the nation ready to do it? Those are political decisions which the army chief was seeking. It was not tactical.
Radhika Kheda, respond. Rahul Gandhi's statements quoting General Naravane's unpublished memoirs, the Congress says that indicates a weakness in the higher direction of war, in the directive that should have come from the political leadership to the army at a time when the Chinese tanks were apparently, in those memoirs, apparently as quoted by Rahul Gandhi or, in public domain seem to indicate that the Chinese tanks were advancing. I have a different version of that story from General Y.K. Joshi, a completely different version when I interviewed him, and we've played that out on India Today. But respond, madam.
First of all, let me remind Ajay sir that yes, this session was formally what happened today was a motion of thanks to the President's address, but it is still a part of the budget session of the Parliament. So budget session has two phases. Again, the Congress is misleading the people. First phase, President's address and motion of thanks, and second phase, you have the budget presentation discussion. So motion of thanks is within the budget session. So I was factually correct. Secondly, sir, now if you Rahul Gandhi, who is the leader of opposition of the world's largest democracy, he cannot, and he belongs to the Congress party. And yes, I say it again, and I say it with utmost जिम्मेदारी के साथ मैं ये बोल रही हूँ. हिंदी में भी बोल देती हूँ और इंग्लिश में भी बोल रही हूँ. That yes, Rahul Gandhi is the poster boy of Pakistan.
My only request to both my guesses, then it's name calling on either side. He will say something about the Prime Minister. You will say something about the leader of the opposition.
No, you cannot. The Prime Minister.
The only person who benefits out of this is either Xi Jinping or Asim Munir. Why would we do that? Why can't India present a united face facing these expansionists?
I'm sorry, we cannot present a united face when the leader of opposition decides to quote a magazine article of an unpublished book. What is the guarantee that that was written in the book what he's citing? Was it there on record? What is the guarantee that what Caravan says is correct? How can you mislead the nation? He has misled the nation on the floor of Parliament unlimited times. कभी कहते हैं कि हिंदू हिंसक होता है, कभी इस चुनाव के पहले he goes on to say संविधान खतरे में. What संविधान was खतरे में? He cannot go on misleading the country. Why does not he talk about the papers that he signed with China, which was hidden from the country? What was written in that document that he was signing away with China? You cannot continue misleading the nation. And yes, Jinping, or for that matter, Pakistan are having a heavy good time because they know that the leader of opposition is going to take their side. He does not believe the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister has never gone and said कि हम ये आप पे विश्वास नहीं करते. When did the Bharatiya Janata Party refuse to believe the Chief of Army, the Chief of Navy, and the Chief of Air Force? I would like to ask Mr.
Kumar, you want to respond? Dr. Ajay Kumar wants to respond to you because Dr. Kumar, you've served in the government. You've worn the uniform. Even if we were to take...
his own MPs laughed at him today. The speaker had to intervene and said, how can you laugh at your own member of parliament when he said, I'm trying to talk about national security? That's how serious the Congress party takes Rahul Gandhi himself.
But my question to Dr. Ajay Kumar is, so the chief reached out, if that is to be believed, if that is really true, he reached out to the government. There was some, according to him, a delay in response. But does the government give a, knee-jerk response to such a grave, situation? Aren't inputs taken from multiple people? I've been speaking to my sources in the government, and they say that for an informed decision, inputs are taken from multiple elements, not just one person. And ultimately, did India buckle under pressure? There was eyeball-to-eyeball confrontation with China. It was China that disengaged first, sir, in that QPQ, and those images were released.
Yes. So first question, calmly. Radhika ji, the BJP and RSS had a meeting with the communists, with the Chinese recently. What is this pseudo-Hinduism, pseudo-nationalism of the Bharatiya Janata Party? The total, you will find out every way to oppress the 90% of the population of the people in this country, which includes ST, SC, OBC, and minority. But leave that aside. You had a meeting with the Chinese, and you are I would say, no name calling, but the way these guys are proceeding, they should be the poster boys for the Chinese. They banned all the apps when the Chinese attacked. Now they're doing the biggest trade deal with China. So let's not get into the zipping. I think Mr. Modi should be the poster boy. The BJP should be the poster boy for every the Bharatiya Janata Party should stop lying. They had a meeting with the Communist Party, recently. What did you not say about Rahul Gandhi when the Chinese ambassador met, and you had an official meeting with the Chinese, and then you have the courage to say this kind of statement, the second part.
But, the facts on ground...
Now they're answering...
Gaurav, complete your point, sir. Yes, sir.
Answering your question. The chief in his article, the chief has not said, I've not written it. So Radhika ji, please ask the chief to publicly say he's not written it, and we will face the consequence of it. The chief has not said he's not written that. First point. The second point.
Under what capacity
One second. Radhika ji, I didn't... Radhika ji. My God.
Please tell us.
Gaurav, one second.
What was the authority of Madam Sonia Gandhi?
One second.
Only Dr. Ajay Kumar, because last 30 seconds I have to bring in General Rakesh Sharma also into this conversation for a non-political perspective on the situation. Dr. Kumar.
So if you look, it's the most shameful abdication of leadership. The general kept asking the chief of Indian Army, sir, because it would have been declaring war on China. Why didn't you call the cabinet committee for security? And why do you keep Dindora Pitoing? With Balakot, you'll go on TV and say, "Humne ye kar diya, humne meeting bulaya."
Okay.
But when it comes to
Sir,
China...
give me a moment. I want to quickly bring in General Rakesh Sharma. Sir, you've commanded the Ladakh Corps. Your impression of this current controversy, was the government, in your view, unwilling to give clear instructions to the then Army Chief? Only General Rakesh Sharma for a moment, please.
Thank you, Gaurav, for inviting me. Firstly, I would say that this is a very painful and a distressing debate that's happening, not now, through the day. The fact of the matter is that there is nothing, the troops in contact then are all serving today. They actually know what happened. The formation commanders know what happened, and they would be listening on. There are troops in contact today also, sitting across the same borders. And we are now discussing issues which are, must be painful across to many people who did something. And second is that there is also a question of a whole lot of conjecturing around. The book is not out. The book is not in the open domain. And we do not know what exactly is written in the book. Book may get redacted by the time it comes out. That's a separate issue altogether. But the fact is, what is the truth? The truth exactly is not even come out, because there are operational reports which are being buried in that manner, which will not be out.
So does this debate actually weaken India's position when internal processes and impressions come out in public domain? Does that give China an advantage into our thinking or our perceptions?
Look, I'll take a step back on your question. You have a valid question that you're asking. The point is that the quid pro quo was planned over a period of time. The troops trained for it. They went over 100-kilometer frontier. It is not this R22 Rezangla Richingla. It is from Anila Kula, which is well on top of. So this was a very major operation, about 2-division operation, not 4 tanks and not 14 tanks. Large operation was carried out. We must salute the people who did it that heights. First part.
Absolutely.
Second, when we started debating from 15th of June onwards, and you and we have all been debating, there was a thought process of rules of engagement. So what are the rules of engagement? Why didn't we fire at Galwan, etc., etc.? Here also, as part of this operation being carried out, certain rules of engagement must have been disseminated. Firstly, the operation would have been discussed in the CSG level, and the CSG China study group, they would have approved this operation. Certain kind of contingencies would have been worked out in the CSG. Certain rules of engagement would have been disseminated across. That squadron commander who was ordered to go on 29th night with 14 tanks to these two passes would have asked a logical question, Mera hukum kya hai? What do I go there? I'll just wait. So his orders would have been clear. Otherwise, the squadron commander is not worth his beans, and he would have done it. Maybe he fired a shot. Maybe he gave a warning shot or a illuminating round or something.
Ills were fired. Illuminating rounds were fired. General, I've run out of time on this part of the show. I want to thank you. The ICC gave Pakistan the long rope. Pakistan hasn't responded to the ICC. Is the message very clear from ICC to Pakistan? You cannot pick and choose matches in a global tournament. If Pakistan does go ahead with selective participation and boycott, could Pakistan face serious sanctions, from loss of hosting rights to isolation, perhaps even a hit on its $34 million annual ICC revenue share? Nikhil Naaz and Vikrant Gupta get you more in this report.
India versus Pakistan, cricket's biggest rivalry. But now the fate of the match, scheduled for February 15 in Sri Lanka, hangs in the balance. Pakistan has refused to play against India in the T20 World Cup. In an unprecedented move, the Pakistani government confirmed its participation in the T20 World Cup 2026, but announced that it will boycott its group stage match against arch rivals India. On the other hand, Team India is all set for the match. India Today Inside Scoop reveals that Team India will go ahead with the pre-match press conference and continue practice exactly as scheduled. The squad will travel to Sri Lanka on time and follow every step laid down by the tournament guidelines. However, the BCCI is awaiting the final decision of the ICC.
ये बड़ा ICC का स्टेटमेंट आया है जिसमें उन्होंने खेल भावना को लेके कहा है, तो हम पूरी तरह ICC से सहमत हैं, और लेकिन हम BCCI इस पर भी कोई टिप्पणी नहीं करेगी जब तक ICC से हमारी बातचीत ना हो जाए.
The ball is now in International Cricket Council's court. The ICC is expected to call a board meeting to discuss Pakistan's threat. Meanwhile, ICC is also considering action against Pakistan. If the boycott row escalates, ICC can tighten Pakistan's bilateral calendars, limiting future cricketing engagements. ICC can also make it harder for foreign players to receive clearances to participate in the Pakistan Super League. Pakistan may even lose hosting rights for future ICC tournaments. Once again, this controversy has given opposition fresh ammunition to corner the government over sporting ties with Pakistan.
पीसीबी ने जो किया है वो बीसीसीआई के मुंह पे तमाचा है, और वो देशवासी जो उम्मीद कर रहे थे कि बीसीसीआई कोई स्टांस लेगी, बीसीसीआई को दिखाया है कि पेनल्टी स्पोर्टिंग कमिटमेंट सब एक तरफ और देश की इज्जत एक तरफ.
अब बताइए पाकिस्तान को ठोक कर जवाब क्यों नहीं दे रहे आप? मतलब पाकिस्तान आपको मुंह चिढ़ा रहा है और आप में जवाब देने की हिम्मत नहीं है. इससे ज्यादा कोई दुर्भाग्य हो सकता है? आप क्यों नहीं जवाब दे रहे? पाकिस्तान की बांग्लादेश से शाहरुख खान ने एक वो ले लिया तो एक हंगामा बरपा था. अरे अब हंगामा करो ना.
An India-Pak match is the biggest money spinner in cricket, with TV advertisement revenue of rupees 150 to 180 crores, digital advertisement revenue of rupees 100 to 150 crores, and up to 50 crore TV and digital viewership. Bureau Report, India Today.
So what's the thinking in the ICC? Joining me with the latest is my colleague Nikhil Naaz. Nikhil, what are you picking up, both at the ICC end and Pakistan end? Does it appear that Pakistan is actually cutting its nose to spite its face?
Well, Gaurav, I couldn't have thought of a better phrase to actually say what's happening right now than the one that you've just quoted. Because if no matter which way you look at this entire fiasco, there's nothing that's going in Pakistan's favor. I think the only thing where they're hedging their bets on is that they might get some geopolitical benefit because they're extending a hand of friendship towards Bangladesh. I know on that front, and you're an expert on that, I think they've put all their eggs in the same basket, hoping that it will be the Mohammed Yunus government that will come to power in Bangladesh. So I think that's where they're going with this, because oftentimes I'm hearing a lot of people talk about this entire decision that has been taken by Pakistan as one taken by the Pakistani government, and maybe the Pakistan Cricket Board may not be on the same page. I'd like to remind them the Pakistani government and Pakistan Cricket Board is, de facto the same person, because the head of the Pakistan Cricket Board is also the interior minister of the country. So definitely they're on the same page taking this call. And then if you look at it, as I said, from any point, let's take a look at it from a cricketing perspective. What benefit is Pakistan going to get? None at all. What are the harms that Pakistan will have to deal with? Well, I can list a lot. Firstly, they're definitely looking at sanctions from the ICC, because they've not only taken the might of Board of Control for Cricket in India, the strongest board, but they've actually taken the rest of the cricketing world head on. 14-2. Because what they're complaining at the moment, and the reason they're not playing the India encounter, is because of a third party, which is now Bangladesh, where they say that, listen, you have been unfair to Bangladesh by not allowing them to get that hybrid model that Pakistan and India avail the benefit of. So this is what they're coming up with. But they forget that this call wasn't taken by India alone. This call was taken by the rest of the cricketing world. 14-2 was the voting that happened. So Cricket Australia was part of that decision. England was part of that decision. West Indies, New Zealand, everyone was part of that decision. What does that do? That actually now isolates Pakistan. Not only will ICC now relook going forward Pakistan's participation in ICC tournament, not only would ICC put heavy financial penalties on Pakistan, because them not playing the India game for which they've signed on the dotted line will affect ICC's revenue. So someone will have to pay. It seems it could be Pakistan. And then even bilateral relations, PSL, all these other properties are going to be affected, because they can't be participating in bilateral cricket and PSL on their own.
Someone will
they
have
need
to
the rest
pay.
of the cricketing world. So on all front, to think of another phrase, maybe what? They've dug their own graves, shot themselves in the foot, anyone that you like.
Okay, so they've shot themselves in the foot, the Pakistani Cricket Board and their interior minister. But can Pakistan, since you mentioned PSL, can Pakistan sustain, its PSL or its cricket minus ICC and BCCI? What happens if others board are also, they decide to avoid Pakistan?
The short answer is no. I'm just going to quickly rattle off some numbers. 600 million is the yearly revenue of the ICC. India get a lion's share, so they should, because they get 80% of that revenue on the table. They get about 260 million from that 600, right? Pakistan, on the other hand, get about 35 million from the ICC kitty. Now, many might say, India 260, Pakistan only 35. So Pakistan has done well to hurt India, because India is losing out on about 260 million. Well, now you have to read the fine print. India may be losing out on that 260, not entirely that amount. India, Pakistan will be 40%. But even if you look at that entire revenue, India's total revenue per year is 2.5 billion. 260 odd million is about 10% of that. So where are you hitting India? 10% of their revenue. Pakistan, on the other hand, 35 million that they get from the ICC kitty, that's 70% of their yearly revenue, of which they get about 55 million.
So that the devil lies in the detail. A 10% loss for India versus a 70% loss for Pakistan Cricket Board, should it continue to push ahead? Or can Pakistan still backtrack? We'll be tracking that story very closely, because Pakistan does whatever it may want to do and it will find an excuse to justify it. Should it back out, then of course India has a golden opportunity to ensure that Pakistan is no longer a part of the cricket playing world, should other boards also be on board, and we'll be tracking that story very closely. That is all I have for you on India First this evening. Many thanks for watching.